Going to look at these terms around consciousness, Mano, Citta, Viññāṇa, Saññā. And first I wanted to, so we have a breakdown on the top of the printed sheet. And so you can see I included the construction there with the roots. And so you can see that how the terms relate to each other, so that you have the different roots, how they connect up the meaning of the words, so that you have manas from man connected to manyati, make this larger. And then mano is a nominative form of manas. So manyati is best example where it's introduced as a term is Majjhima Nikāya 1, where it's about imagination, conceiving something. And then from that manas, mano, they are to do with some state of mind, some attitude. And then it's, if you compare it with citta and cetas, these are all from ceteti. He thinks, he has a mind of doing something. Then cetana is a volition, again with cit, with a certain mind, you're doing something. Then viññāṇati, you have so ja is again from ñā, viññāṇati, and so viññāṇa, you recognize the ñā in the word. It connects up to knowing, the viññāṇati. Vi as a prefix, it usually separates things. So that's why it's often translated as distinguishing, like separating from. You make a difference between two things. Viññāṇa, separating knowledge. And then pājānāti is another common term that is connected with the root ñā. Knowing in the sense of understanding it, clear knowing. So it's more, not so much the separating out, but the staying with that knowledge. Like sampajānāti, for example, sati sampajañña is also that this is part of its compound, like staying with it, attending to it, being mindful of it. And then paññāyati, like paññā is often it's the discernment, isn't it? Is that he discerns something, he sees something separate, paññā. And then for saññā, again it's ñā, so it's again we often translate it as just perception, isn't it? But there's a deeper connection to coming to know something. You have a concept of recognizing something. That's why it becomes a perception for you. If you don't have a concept for it, then you can't perceive it. And so saññā is connected with saññānāti. So again, it's jānāti, it's with knowing a certain thing. But saññā is often also relates to being conscious of. So saññā, saññī, he is percipient, is a kind of technical translation, but it just means like he is with that kind of meaning. Like so saññā, viññāṇa, cetas, ceteti. We'll collect phrases as we go along. I don't want to go into specific English definitions, but I was planning to collect phrases as we go along and build up the meaning through the text rather than trying to define them very precisely through dictionary definitions. But what I thought was interesting to look at is the English words that are often used to describe these often have similar roots. Like if you take discern, like discern is discern, distinguish, like it's a viññāṇa is a way knowing, like a separate knowing, distinguishing, discrimination, like conscious is conscience, like with the knowing, with a seeing. Or cognize is for cognizance, and it links up with so cognize is links up with perception. So when you're reading about Saññā, then perception is how to say, you have to connect it with that this is a knowing, it's a way of knowing, like thoroughly being able to have a cognizance of it. So cognizance is with the gnosis, with the knowing.
That's actually etymologically related with jnana.
Exactly, like you can see how these connections can be made by, is it a knowledge together, knowledge apart, separating two things apart, or being with the knowing. And so perception is interesting, how it's thoroughly grasping.
Yes.
You're thoroughly grasping with the mind. So if you're not grasping with the mind, then there's no perception. These are, you must have seen, we created a website for these notes. That's the address. If you open the previous link, then you have found the new website. And so I have these notes in there, but they are not on the printed sheets, but you can look it up later. And interesting quote from Lao Tzu is, words exist because of meaning, and once you've gotten the meaning, you can forget the words. So, when you're focusing too much on the words and the grammar, then I think sometimes the meaning can be lost. But once you understand the meaning, then you're not so concerned about the definitions anymore. But let's start reading, and we'll build up some context for all these terms. So for example, first one was on the paper is from the Dhammapada for Mano. Ajahn Kongrit, can I ask you to read the first one, Dhammapada 1?
Mano pubbangama dhamma mano-samphasso mano-maya manassa je paduttena pasati va karoti va.
Thank you. So Mano pubbangama, Mano is pubbangama is a preceding, comes before it. You recognize the compound, Mano pubbangama comes before it. That thought Dhamma here is Mano Dhamma. So they are mind Dhammas, they are thoughts or perceptions or all qualities that appear in the mind. And they are preceded by Mano. So it's going to be a very fundamental part of experience that comes before the thoughts. So Mano, Citta, Mano-maya is, Citta is a chief, forerunner, that they are
Highest.
the highest. They are, Mano is the chief of them. Right, Mano-maya. Maya is to be made of. Like when you say something is made of gold, or something is made of wood, then, or something is made of that thing, then that's how the Maya is used in compounds. And so Mano-maya is it's made of attention, or it's made of that mind. They are mind made, produced by the mind. And the phrase here, manasace paruttena. So paruttena is instrumental, So it's by or with the mind that is. Parutena is
it's from, I think it's, yeah, that's right, wicked, corrupt.
wicked, corrupt.
Whether corrupted. Yeah.
So the commentary defines it through ill will. So evil thoughts, thoughts of ill will, thoughts of cruelty, like a mind that has a mind. So mana is something that can be corrupted. That's why this is significant when I think of the meaning, is that you wouldn't. So, for example, where is it where you can substitute some of these terms? Like often people will say Mano, Citta, Viññāṇa, there's a lot of overlap, but sometimes there isn't an overlap. And so here you could conceivably say Cetasa, like Manasa Cetasa from Chit, because that will also describe a mind state. But you wouldn't, for example, use Viññāṇa. You wouldn't use Saññā, because those will be more like a precise, more like building blocks of that experience. But Manasa Cetasa will be like a more comprehensive attitude that can be corrupted. And so Bhasativa Karotiva, so with that corrupted state of mind, he speaks or he acts, like Bhasati Karoti. And then you remember the verse that it leads to painful experiences, that pain follows him like the shadow follows the footsteps of the ox. But the contrast is interesting for me, is that Manasa is in the next verse. Manasa is pasannena. So it's Manasace Paruttena, Manasace Pasannena. These are, Pasanna is from Pasada, is from, it can mean faith, but in this case it's like a brightness, bright or pure, bright or pure with a pure mind. And so he speaks or acts with a pure mind, and happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves you. That's the end of the verse. And so what's interesting here for me is that, so one word, can I copy these? So Manas, this is something that can be Pasannena or Paruttena, right?
Yeah, it has some characteristic, some moral quality.
Like there's it encompasses your whole attitude. And if you look at so the other one is from Majjhima Nikaya 2, is where you remember the Sabbasava Sutta. So here one of the key terms that the Buddha is introducing is Yoniso Manasikara and Ayoniso Manasikara. Is Manasikara is making, Kara is to make attention, or to
do something with your mind, but
to make
clear how to translate it in English. But anyway, yeah.
Like you make your mind to attend to something. You make your mind to turn towards something in a certain way. So that, and Yoniso is to attend to the source or origin. You're aware of, a way you could express it is that you know where things come from, you understand their origin, you understand their cessation, you understand how they are dependently originated, that would be yoniso. You're attending to its context, you're attending to its proper understanding. And then the negation, the ayoniso, is when the person is not attending to that, not attending to its source, not attending to its origin, doesn't understand how things arise and cease. And so he's making his mind not attend to the source, and therefore evil mind states will arise for him. That he will be obsessed with views, he will be obsessed with becoming, he will be obsessed with sensual pleasures, because he's not attending to the source.
Yeah, it's translated wisely because it's used in a more general context. Maybe originally that's what it meant. Maybe in some technical context we can translate it like to the source, but
like I think wisely is a good translation. I think
is a general translation.
But I think when we talk about which part of the mental experience this is, it's wise attention because you're aware of the context of things, right? And that's why it can be called wise.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the result of yoniso manasikara, like appropriate attention. So tassa evang yoniso manasikaroto. So from that correct attention, the three tini sanyojanani pahiyanti, that he abandons the three fetters, which are self-view, sakkaya ditthi, doubt, vicikicca, silabhata paramasa, is clinging to the best way to do everything. Clinging to my way, clinging to the rites and rituals as we usually translate it. And so yoniso, so manasikara is something that is connected to the fetters, right? Sangyojanani. So I would like to copy this to the terms. Like, again, to connect it with manasikaroto. Is that this is something that is can either abandon the fetters in the mind or will make you attach and create more fetters. So here, for example, you wouldn't even substitute it with cetas. Like cetasikaroto, maybe, but it never occurs.
No,
like so that way, that to me it tells me that manas mano has a very strong correlation to this ayoniso manasikara, which is a very fundamental property. Like this comes before dhammas, this comes before thoughts, this comes before a lot of experience. And that ayoniso manasikara will lead to, here let's correct it to yoniso, because if we're abandoning the fetters, then we're abandoning them with attending to the right source. Like tini sanyojanani, like that. The next one, Ajahn Gavisako, can I ask you to read this this is from the Sutta where people are chopped up to pieces with a double-handed saw. Can I ask you to read this Pāli, please, and we'll make a translation.
Ubhato dandakena chepi vikave kakachena chora o charaka angamangani okanteyum tatrapi yo manopaduseya name sotena sasanakaro. So
you can finish the
tatrapi vo vikave evam sikitabam na chevano chittang viparinatang bhavisati. Yeah,
So
and then, yeah. Okay.
the kakachena is the saw
With the saw,
with a double-handed saw.
that's the double hand. Ubhato, ubha means both, so means double handles, I guess, some kind of, on both sides. This
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
right.
big saw
Dandakena is like a stick, so it has
Yeah.
2 sticks.
on each side. So chepi means if. Che is if because the choras, chora is the bandit or a thief, or chora is if the bandits were angamangani. Anga means the limb, like your hand, your foot, your leg, any kind of limb of the body. So angamangani means limb by limb, every limb.
Yeah, that's right. Limb by limb, he would okantejung.
I guess it means cut off.
He would cut you up. He would chop to pieces.
You'll be the thieves, the robbers would chop you up, cut you up with his saw.
With this double-handed saw. That's right.
And
From that,
all the limbs. Tatrapi yomano padusaya. From that meaning from that reason, yo mano padusaya, who, yo is who, would make his mind, mano, padusaya. That's from this root dosa, like it's from dus or dosa, which means like ill will, hatred. And padusati means to become filled with hatred. Namme so tena sasankaro. So he tena
by that.
through that action, tena means by that, meaning by that making the mind angry. Me sasana karo, he wouldn't name, not, so na is not, and me sasana karo means he would not be, by doing that, he would not be one who makes or follows my teaching. Sasana karo. So sasana generally means like instruction, teaching. Sasana karo is one who does it, who follows it.
Like karoti does, performs an action. Right?
So one who is like following what I'm teaching, and me sasana karo, my teaching. He would not be one who follows my teaching.
So again, the significance for mano to me in this is that mano is something that can be filled with hatred.
Right.
Like that, whatever the way you think of mano, it's something that can be either filled with ill will, hatred, or it can be removed of it. Like it can be pure of it, purified of it.
Padusaya, it's actually, I think it's like what's the word? An active or a causative verb.
Causative, that causes to spoil the mind.
Yeah. So you actually intentionally doing it, making the mind angry is something that in Pali you can actually express that with the verb form.
Like Paduseya is he makes the mind angry.
I also remember dusati is the verb to rape a nun.
But that's slightly different context. But yeah, it is also from the same root. Yes. It means something like bad in general. Yeah. Spoiling or.
So mano paduseya. He makes the mind, like he makes his attention. He allows his attention to follow that.
Yeah. So paduseya, he would make the mind angry, or like spoiled literally, but with anger.
And the padutena here is to viparinatam cittam viparinatam bhavissati.
Okay, so tatrapi will be covered. Tatrapi again, therein, or in that case, because thus you should train yourself. Evam sikitabam, thus you should train. Sikitabba, so that's again something you should do, you ought to do. Natchevana cittam viparinatam bhavissati. So not is negative.
Not bhavisati, right?
Yeah, so na bhavisati, it will not become like that. It will not become. And how? Viparinatang is from viparinama is a change, literally, but it always means some kind of negative change for the worse. And cittang, so that the mind, no cittang is our mind. Our mind, the no means our in that context.
So this is the
So it's
people
not-
who are being sold.
Exactly, the people who were captured. No cittang means our minds, but in Pali, you don't say our minds, you say our mind. So the cittang is in singular, but it refers to us. They are using the plural form. So our mind will not be na bhavisati, and what it will not be viparinata. Viparinata means it's from viparinama. It's an adjective.
Like literally twisted or controlled or corrected.
Corrected,
Again, a
probably.
way of.
Viparinama means sometimes can mean like a change of mind, like describing young bhikkhus. If they are not properly trained, their mind will become spoiled and they will destroy. That's how it's used.
So here you can see how manas and cetas is quite closely related. So there is good reason why people will say that these are often interchangeable. Like in one sentence, it's his mind is mano-padusseya. His mind is he causes his mind to spoil.
Yeah.
And in the next phrase, it's our citta will not be controlled. Our mind will not be controlled. It will not become perverted. It will not become twisted.
It's almost interchangeable.
So in this context, they relate to very much the same thing, like this your entire psyche, if you could say, for example. And then that's right, just to so padutena is particularly it's with ill will, making the mind with ill will, and so the distinction we made here is that ayoniso manasikara, like inappropriate attention. We'll read about this phrase papancha saññā saṅkhā samudacaranti. This will come up when we read about contact. So papancha saññā saṅkhā is proliferating concepts or signs that are walking over a man, that are dragging him around and taking him everywhere. Like he's obsessed with these proliferating concepts in the mind. It's because through tanha mana ditti papancha. So that again, so this is with mana, so manasikara. So manasikara is you can connect it to tanha mana ditti papancha. Right, this is again something that relates to manas cetas. These are like in the Dhammapada, manasace paduttena, like that attention was very like a forerunner. It precedes even thought. It precedes even ideas. It precedes. It's just your general attitude, your general attention. Like you already make your mind to receive a certain kind of thing. You decide what you're going to become conscious of. But later it's a much more comprehensive term. Like it will include craving, conceit, views, and proliferating concepts. So in that sense, it's.
You had that in the line above.
Which one?
The vyapana citta padutta manasankappa. That's an interesting concept. Vyapana citta means a mind with vyapada or vyapada, which we translate always as ill will. So mind that is like mind with ill will. And padutta manasankappa is an interesting one because you see the combination there of Padutta again means like corrupted, one of corrupted, mana-samphasso. So mana and sankappa are joined together. So what that sankappa, you remember from the Noble Eightfold Path, sama sankappa, but in general it means more like intention or thought. We translate it often as right thought or right intention. So it's that intentional element of thought is more than, so in that case, mana-sankappa means like mental intentions. So that points to the way it's used often, like it's something to do with how we intend, how we form our, before we start to think, we already have the mind kind of somehow corrupted with ill will, and then everything else follows.
That's right. So when you already have the thought, I hate this.
Right. That's it.
Before that, you already decided that you're going to attend to the way things are in a particular way, with ayoniso manasikara.
Right.
And so that attention precedes
It's already spoiled.
that proliferation in the mind.
That's why it's called spoiled mind, padutta, citta, or something. It's like the mind. Yeah, imagine like something that is spoiled, and whatever you squeeze out of it, it's spoiled.
And so this is from the commentary in Majjhima Nikāya Atthagatha, where they deliberate a little bit on papancha saññā sankha, and so this is where I found the connection with that it's tanha mana ditti papancha. So with that concept, with that saññā, like here, this is the attention. So you have some kind of manasikara. Ayoniso manasikara in this case. That leads to the papancha, that leads to craving, conceit, views, and connected with that, sampayutta. You become connected with those concepts. Saññā here is ideas, concepts, perception, conceiving. So here for example, translating it as a perception is not deep enough. Like he's producing those ideas, those conceptualizations in the mind. Like so here that connects up with saññā. Saññā namayana. Okay. Then samudācaran, so they explain samudācaranti is that he is led around. Bhavattanti is to
proceed, to continue, to occur. You just described, if you are familiar with the Madhupindika Sutta, the honey ball, that's where it's described. You start to think about something, and then it proliferates until you're kind of overwhelmed by all these thoughts coming kind of back at you and overwhelming you.
It's like this is the next one, Majjhima 18. This is the Madhupindika, the Honeyball Sutta, where one of the main places where passa, contact, and papancha is described. So contact, this is a very deep idea there. So Tambarabo, can I ask you to read this until Tinnang Sangati Passo?
Okay. Chakunchavuso paticca rupe cha upachati Viññāṇaṁ Tinnang Sangati Passo. Mananchavuso paticca dhamme cha upachati Mano-viññāṇaṁ Tinnang Sangati Passo.
Thank you. So the passa here, this is contact. So the Tinnang Sangati, in the coming together of Sangati is to come together, to be joined, to meet. And so the coming together of three things is contact. Where contact here, it's sometimes translated as sense contact, but it's a much more profound idea than just your senses operating or not. So there is, so you know, what are the three things then that has to come together for contact? Chakku, Chakkuncha, like the eye, like depend. Paticca is to depend.
Depend on. Yeah.
So dependent on eye and forms, rupe.
Rupe is plural. Yeah.
So or dependent on eye and forms. Upajjati arises. Arises the eye consciousness. And so you see here that this explains Viññāṇa as well to us. So that Viññāṇa depends on these two things. Is that you need, in order for you to distinguish anything, the eye and form has to be separated. So today the arrows are more philosophical connections rather than the grammar dependency that we usually draw. So Chakku Viññāṇa, this depends on these two things. That's how it arises, that you have your eye is able to distinguish something, right? That's, and when you have that, when you have made that distinction, then you can say that there is contact. This is passo. But then the same goes with all the senses. So it's much more profound than, you know, your eyes are open or not. In fact, if your eyes are closed, there is still contact. If your eyes are open, there is still contact. You know, don't try to explain it in biological terms, because it will be very misleading. You'll end up with, you know, thinking, are your nerves operating or not, or where the retina is processing your images, and these concepts from medical science have a purpose of explaining the operation of organs. They are not for the purpose of explaining and describing how your experience arises and ceases. And so that's an important thing to take up, is that sometimes the terms from psychology and medical science are useful, but you have to remember that their definitions have a purpose, and the Buddha's definitions have a purpose. These purposes are different. In the terms that the Buddha uses, the aim is always to arising of dukkha, like the knowledge of dukkha. Dukkha, like right view. Dukkha Jnanam, Dukkha Samudaya Jnanam. So the knowledge of how suffering arises, what its origin, what its cessation, and the path leading to its cessation. That's what these terms are serving. And so here the same with regards to contact. We have the same construction ending with passo, like ending with contact, that based on cha is manancha
Avuso.
cha avuso.
He's talking to his friend.
Okay.
He's just.
So he's addressing the monks, and so he says, and the eye friends, and the mind friends. So here, mana, you could say mind, but we connected it rather with this very basic form of attention, like based on that attention and qualities, ideas,
mental qualities,
qualities, mental, all sorts of things. Basically, that's all the Dhamma.
Yep.
And based on these two things, there will be your there will be a distinguishing in the mind. Like there will be a separating of this is not that. There will be a consciousness of something. So let's take this to our other sheet as well. So here, that's right, we're finding a few things for Viññāṇa here.
It's getting complicated.
So you see so manas and cetas, they are more encompassing terms, and Viññāṇa and Saññā, they are part of that term, part of that experience which they encompass. So they are like functions of the mind or of manas or cetas. Like these two, if either of them precedes the other, then I would lean towards the manas, like because it's more of a attitude, more of a attention, that leads to some kind of mind state, leads to a citta, and citta connects with raga, dosa, moha.
The citta is
like
always
your mind is.
It's always described as something that's affected by emotions. Some kind of like saraga citta, sadosa citta, samoha citta, the mind with greed, with hatred, with delusion. Yeah.
That's right, and Saññā and Viññāṇa, you want to copy them? They are, I don't want to put arrows in any direction because they are more like they are part of that that's going on. So there will be, there will be perceptions, there will be conscious experiences through contact, and they will be part of the mind that is either purified or it's filled of passions, hatred, or confusion. And then your attitude is either yoniso manasikara, right? Your attitude is attending to the context of things, or ayoniso is unwise attention. You're unaware of how things come about. So they, yes, have this kind of relation. But so for contact. So let's follow. Let's finish this sutta, and then I have something else I want to show. So you have made, at this point you have made contact. Like you're aware of something. You have, your friend is trying to join.
Oh, well, it's Tita.
Tita Panyo, no, that's Tita Panyo back. He left.
He dropped out somehow.
No, okay.
He just come back. Admit.
I did.
Oh, he's still there. Oh, yeah.
Okay, he's coming.
Okay.
Alright. So at this point you've arrived at contact. You're conscious of something. There is like you have attitude, you have an idea, you have a mental distinguished concept. You've separated some knowledge, and so you have a contact with that, and based on that contact, passapacchaya, you have a feeling. So from Mano, Dhamma and Mano-viññāṇa, you have passa, you have contact. From that contact, you have a feeling, and here feeling is like a very basic, fundamental experience of just you feel you like it, you dislike it, or you're neutral. So there's either forward, either towards, away from it, or it's same.
Yeah, some people say, even translate it as experience in a very basic, fundamental sense on that level, like where you become sensitive to your environment and things like that.
So then somebody who has, so Vedana, its verb form, like the feeling, is Vedeti. So Vedana feels, and then
Yang Vedeti Tang Saññāti. What one feels, that one
yeah,
perceives.
then please read the
Yang
words.
Vedeti Tang Saññāti. So until now, the interesting thing also how the sentence is constructed. First, it just mentions like there is this mano, the dhammas, then arises mano, consciousness, coming together is contact, condition through contact is feeling. But from now on, it actually becomes like a personalized. Now we are talking about somebody who has the experience. So yang vedeti, what you could add so, yang so vedeti, tang so saññāti. There is an implied subject. Yeah, he, what he feels, that he perceives. Yang vedeti tang saññāti. Yeah? It's a verb form, third person singular. So he, what he feels, that he perceives.
He's with that knowing.
Yeah.
Saññāti.
Right.
Okay.
And then the same, yang saññāti tang vitaketi. What he perceives, that he thinks about.
That's right. You can't think about what you didn't perceive.
Right. You have to have some basic concept. You form some concept about the thing.
Exactly. And then around that concept, you have thoughts.
You start to proliferate with your thoughts, vitaketi. But if the proliferation becomes more, then it's called papancha. So yang vitaketi tam papancheti. So first he thinks, and then what he thinks about that he proliferates.
The verb manyati or Majjhima Nikaya 2,
Yeah.
what is the more equivalent
Where
to
would it
these
fit?
three?
Well, it seems it would fit probably that whole sequence. So saññāti, vitaketi, papancheti.
All the three are the process of manyati.
I would say so. Yeah, because it's very similar. Is this mental? We don't have one word for it in English.
So Manyati relates to the distinction of. So we are talking about. So Manyati.
That's the.
So Manyati, and in Majjhima Nikaya 1, this is a very specific term that relates to the experience of the worldling who has not heard the Dhamma, who is not understanding the teaching. The people from Sotapanna and onwards who have the first understanding of truth, they begin to understand how perception and how their reality works, and the fully enlightened Arahant. And so the way I think to understand this term is to put it in those distinctions, is that you have the worldling who believes in his perceptions, like he believes in Saññā. He lives on the level that whatever I think about, that's real. Whatever I experience, that's completely real. That a being, when I see a being, when I see Ajangavesako, then there is an existing Ajangavesako.
Yes.
There is, he has no understanding that this is a constructed, dependently originated experience. And then you have so that's like the Putujana, the worldling, right? And then you have the trainee, the Seka, who trains to not imagine it, trains to not believe it. He has seen that thing is constructed, that a person arises through conditions, and so the way in the Sutta is the Buddha says he should not imagine.
Yeah, he should not follow that kind of.
Not manyi. Like he gives an instruction. He doesn't.
He should not imagine. He should not think like this. Yeah.
He should not think like this. That he knows to train his mind. But Sotapanna and onwards, 3 mentorers and onwards. And then he talks about the Arahant and the Tathagata.
Yeah, it's the same.
Tathagata, who are the ones that are free from that imagination. The Arahant and Tathagata, they don't imagine it.
It doesn't even arise. Those kind of thoughts don't even arise anymore.
That idea that this thing is a real thing, it doesn't even occur to them.
And is related, for example, an arahant can papancha?
No, that's the
The
whole
thing
thing.
is connected,
So
no?
those things, that's why Ajahn Buddhadasa, for example, he says this whole cycle that we described above, he says you can stop it at Phassa or at Vedana. He has all these thoughts where he describes how if you develop meditation and strong sati, that you don't have to let this process run to the end, like you go to Phassa, Vedana, and there you can stop it. So you don't develop the Saññā, Tivitake, Tipapancheti, all those things. You can actually stop them at that point if you have enough kind of wisdom.
Yes, I think it's very practical instruction. Like, something is running through your mind, something is obsessing your mind. How can you walk it backwards from that proliferation? Can you go to the thought? From that thought, can you go to the perception or the knowing, the concept? From the concept, there will be a feeling that produces that. That from that feeling, where is the contact? What are the conscious parts of that contact? What are the ideas that resulted in that contact? What is the way of attending that resulted in that contact? Like this is brilliant meditation instruction. It's very beautiful. It's very, very practical when you're sitting in the Dhamma hall and okay, how do I go deeper? And you identify which level you're aware of, which level is your mind is operating on, and then can I step back from that? Can I what is it that I experience? That's right. And when wisdom then distinguishes those steps, then they each break up. Like with wisdom, their reality disappears. You no longer live in the reality of your perceptions. You understand that they are things coming and going, and none of them is very important.
But in terms of talking about what is an arahant like compared to a puthujjana, so it's not like the arahant doesn't think at all or has no mental experience. He does, but it stops there. It would stop at the Vedana, and then he would probably have some basic Saññā, if you could still call it that way, some recognition, but it wouldn't continue beyond that. All those other things. It's like a kind of spinning out of
So at
proportions.
this point, this is more mechanical.
Yeah, exactly. That's
and
why
from here, these are nouns.
Exactly.
Right?
So
this is a noun: attention, idea, contact, a feeling.
Like the building blocks of your experience.
Right. And these are words. He feels, he perceives, he conceives, he knows, he thoughts, he proliferates.
And then at that point there is a comma, and then after that it's funny because once you go through this process, he proliferates. So all this thought he is like proliferated in his mind, and then it changes again. Yampa pancheti, that which he proliferates, tato nidāṇaṁ, from that source, from that as a source, purisāṁ, meaning that's an accusative, that person, or to that person, papanca saññā saṅkhā samudācaranti, these thoughts and concepts and ideas that are proliferated, they overwhelm you, they come at you, at that person, so it's kind of this suddenly starts to describe what happens to the person, you get overwhelmed, or that person gets overrun by these proliferated concepts with regards to past, future and present mental phenomena.
Mano-viññāṇaṁ.
But mano-viññāṇaṁ means the phenomena that are cognizable by the mind. that can be known by the mind. We would say mental phenomena, but literally it can be known by the mind. Mano-viññāṇaṁ. So you see, you get overwhelmed with all these mental phenomena as a result of all this process of proliferation. Because the thing is that the person who does not attend wisely, I only saw, he doesn't realize what's happened. So he's just sort of sitting there and thinks, why does all these thoughts like attack me? You know, it's almost like describes a situation where this person gets like attacked from outside by these thoughts and all these concepts and proliferation, and that's how a normal person really feels it. People will say, you know, I have so much all these, you know, thoughts like filling my mind, attacking, and I don't know what to do about them. So it feels like something from outside.
Something is controlling you.
Right.
Something is walking over you.
Over you.
But some would have charanti.
Right.
Charanti is to walk.
It's to walk, yeah. Exactly.
But Ajahn, I'm thinking about the example of Mahakassapa.
Yeah.
When he hears this guy saying, let's do what we want, the Buddha is dead.
Oh, yeah.
So he has Pasa, he has Vedana, let's say, and he has to act. So at what level he don't enter in Papancha to say, okay, let's do the first council?
Yeah, it's difficult because basically these are just ordinary words, you know, in the Pāli language, Vitakka and Saññā. So there were no terms that the Buddha could have used that would just describe like a pure thinking of an arahant. You know, the arahant obviously must have some mental process, must have a thought, must have a perception, but it's just not affected by the defilements, right?
Okay.
So, but you can't distinguish it like, okay, you could say he doesn't have the papancha bit. Yeah, that definitely would not apply.
Okay, so before continuing the reading, I would like to show you a different. I would like to take you through a few images. So this is our first. Okay, so I'll ask Venerable Titapanyo, what do you see on the screen?
I don't see anything, actually.
So do you see a white screen?
Yeah, I see a white screen.
No, not that white.
Good. What do you
It's all.
What do you see now?
Smiley face.
Very good. Your eye is confirmed to be working.
Saññā works.
Okay, so we'll go back to the white screen, and then so on this screen, you know, what is the Saññā? You know, what is the perception? The eye perceives this white uniform background. Right? You're very clearly not distinguishing pieces that are on it, right? Maybe you can see my cursor in the corner. I'll try to hide it. But there's no, like Viññāṇa, there's no discrimination of other things. There's just this unified field of white perception, right? Okay, so keep looking at the screen and see at what point can you see anything? Can you distinguish something?
I think I can start to see lines.
There is like the brain is struggling to pattern match something that, like there is some Saññā, but you can't quite grasp it.
I see that.
It doesn't appear there.
If you put on the other screen,
No, it doesn't appear.
Well, maybe it's just not.
No, it's on that screen doesn't show. The other one will show.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
Okay, yeah. Flower.
Okay, now it's coming.
Very nice.
Good.
Wow.
So it takes quite a while for the perception to distinguish, no? Like if we go back, then now that you know that you should see a flower, it's much easier for you to get the idea that there is a flower. So if you look at the screen like this, then you have distinguished parts of that uniform experience. Like there's an attitude, there's a form, of like here it's like chakkuncha paticca rupe, like based on the eye and forms, there is chakku viññāṇaṁ, there is the consciousness of an eye experience, right? And and you have the concept, the idea that this is a flower. And now you could think about, this is I like this flower, I don't like this flower, like what feels, he thinks about, what he thinks about, he starts obsessing, why does Ajahn Gambhiro show me this flower?
And where is that woman coming from with a flower car?
Yesterday I saw somebody with a flower, and
that's papancha.
That's right. Then you start thinking about past, future, present.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's do another one. Can you see anything at this point?
Like a person.
That's right, but what allows you to see a person? It's really just shades of white.
Yeah, it could be something.
Right? This is
Mm-hmm.
you could even enhance it by smoothing out some of these folds, and you could still like perceive a person. Like still the concept would arise in your mind that there is a person there on the screen. Like there is this, you have to rely on that there is a jacket, there are clothes that have these folds, that there is a hood. These are concepts which allow you to have an experience of a white jacket against a white background. And can you go back? How faint do I have to make it so that you can go back and forth between, is this now a white wall with some patterns, or is it now a person? Like you can go through, you can deconstruct the experience when it's not very strong. Okay. So now, what kind of forms do you experience?
Circles and lines, and not sure.
That's right. So what are these are the concepts that are readily available in your mind, that it can grasp, that there are some geometric shapes, there are some edges and corners inside them. Like these could be like slices of a pie, right? But what is there another shape now?
Yeah, there's a cube.
Right, and what allows you to see the cube? Like the image.
Yeah, perception of a cube. I'm familiar with it, I guess.
That's right, that's the key. You're familiar with the idea of a cube. Otherwise, you have to rely on that concept in order for the perception to be cognizable to you. If you're not familiar with the idea of these outlined cubes, would you see a cube? I'm not convinced that you could you could show this to a child who hasn't gone through geometry class and they would see a cube. Like this is by the way, this is called the subjective Necker cube, because because the cube only exists in your experience. Like what kind of what kind of contact this is?
Well, there has to be mind contact. There has to be eye contact, of course, but then there has to be mind contact as well.
Right. The eye contact here is not so dominant. It's the mind contact that allows you to see the cube.
fills in the context.
Today I was thinking about this thing that you have the first letter and the last letter, and you can change everything, and then the mind can read it like without any interruption.
That's right.
The
That's
mind
right.
can
The
read.
concept is already there for you, and you can.
Exactly, you can read, and then the words are in the middle are totally changed. It's really incredible.
Yeah, the mind fills in a big part. Yeah.
Okay, this is another example of the same sort of construction.
Yes. So first I see the cup, the chalice. But second, looking at it another way, two people, two faces.
Yes, two faces.
What else do you see? How many triangles do you see?
Oh yes, first two, but then there are smaller ones as well. At the top there's another one. At the top,
1, 2, 3, 4,
white
5,
one.
6, 7, 8.
There's many.
Exactly. How do those triangles appear in your mind? You know, there's not many of them drawn. Like, and if you're not familiar, if you've not trained the Saññā of a triangle, then you would not see triangles. You might not even see faces if you've not looked at a lot of these outlines.
Yeah.
This is what is it? This is the cognition triangle, and the face with the cup is the Rubin vase. I think that's the name. Okay, now. Honorable, what do you see?
I see in the video like this. Otherwise, I don't see anything.
I see modern art. Modern art.
I see like two eyes and one mouth. That's it.
Okay, what is the concept that you're going to pull over it? Like then, but let's continue.
Hey, por Dios.
Okay, what do you see now? What do you see now?
Sapa, the snake.
Snake, that's right. So now the interesting thing.
At night.
Can you now see the snake?
Yes.
We fill it in.
What allows
yes.
What allows you to see the snake?
Yes.
The perception.
Memory, perception.
That you have the concept now readily available for you.
Okay.
That without that concept, you could not see the snake, even though the image is the same. So, what this is contact. Like you have, like you need the concept in order to have contact with the object. Otherwise.
So the mind has to come. So for example, imagine you go into a museum of modern art and you are just so tired and you just can't you just drag yourself there and you're just staring at the wall at these kind of blobs and you just can't make any sense of it because your mind is not really there, it's not really working. So you just don't know what's these kind of funny blobs on the wall. But then maybe you drink a coffee, you come back an hour later and your mind is already working. And suddenly, that makes sense. I can see some, because you're starting to make more mind contact at that point. Your mind kicks into action.
That's right. Or if you've been given an introduction,
right?
Like often to appreciate a form of art. Art is also often like representative, and if you've not been trained to know what is it that I should be looking at, what is it that I should be perceiving, what is it that I should try to see in the image, then you won't be able to appreciate an otherwise masterful artwork.
Yes.
Even if it's not, just like 2 lines on a screen like some of the abstract ones. But okay, so that was, I think, worth.
That's good.
So that was worth seeing. I realized we're probably not going to be able to get through all the text now, but
anyway.
But I think the exercise is enjoyable.
Yes, very good.
So let's jump a little bit, because here what was interesting is the idea of contact And the next one is, the Buddha is asking, that desire, passion depends on contact. If you don't have contact with these things, would you have desire and passion for them?
That's right. Yes.
Like, and the answer is, of course, no. And so that, like Kaya Viññāṇa, he goes through all the senses, consciousness of body, consciousness with all the senses, and then Mano-viññāṇaṁ, like mind, concepts. If those are not experienced, then the resulting desire, passion also can't be experienced. You need that contact.
He says that what that sutta is about is that you cannot have a kind of a general desire for nothing. He says you can only have desire for things that you have sometimes felt or experienced or touched or smelled, and you have that idea, I might smell them again, I might touch them again, and based on that you form particular desires, and without that you wouldn't have that desire. That's what it says. Yeah.
That's right. And then moving on, this is Dika Nikaya, when he's talking about, based on how does craving arise? Where does that craving arise? Yang loke piya rupam sata rupam. Is that whatever in the world is?
No, it's not arising; it's ceasing.
Here that's correct. Correct. That's right. This is from the cessation. First it's arising. Where does that craving arises? It arises in whatever is pleasant and desirable in the world. Yang loke piya rupam sata rupam. And then here this part is the cessation. Where is that? That tanha, that craving. Where is it abandoned and where does it cease? Where does it dissipate? It also dissipates at the same place, and whatever is desirable and likable in the world. Good. So let's move on to, so here this Dhammapada verse about Citta.
Oh, yes. Yatha agarang succannam buddhi na samati vijjati evam subhavitam cittam rago na samati vijjati. Just as the house which is well covered, with a roof, as the house that is well covered, buddhi is the rain, doesn't come through.
The rain doesn't enter.
Doesn't enter. Does not come in. Does not enter. Evam, thus, the citta, the mind which is subhavita, which is well developed. Subhavitam citta, the mind which is well developed. Rago na samati vijjati, the passion does not enter.
So again, with regards to distinguishing these terms, this was meaningful for citta in the way that the mind citta can be something that is subhavitam,
you develop it,
that it is well developed, or abhavitam. Like here, you wouldn't even substitute it with manasa.
Manasa or viññāṇa.
Like you're not developing your
mind,
your attention. Like the attention is like an immediate, very precise
tool or some kind.
That precedes the developed mind.
Right. Exactly.
Like you use the attention. Like manasa, you use the attention to develop a certain citta.
Right. That's
so manas will develop a certain citta, a certain mind. And that's going to be depending on whether it's correct attention or incorrect, and it will be well developed or undeveloped.
That's it.
I think there is another distinction between citta and mano, that you cannot say citta caro because citta caro is the one who paints. Citta is a painter.
But that's another meaning. It's from a different root. Chitra in Sanskrit means like varied, differentiated, but that's a different. Is not from the same root. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so the Chitta is a result of pointing the mind in a certain direction, developing it.
And then in the next sutta, this is Santi Bhikkave Mano-viññāṇaṁ Dhamma Manoram Ramapi Amanoramapi, is that there are bhikkhus, things cognizable by the mind that are pleasant and pleasing, and Tayaya Pussa Pussa Chittang Na Pariyaya Tittanti. So he talks about, who, this is later in the sutta, when somebody is paying with has the right attitude, that there can be these pleasant experiences that are cognizable to mind, but by that contact,
repeated,
by that repeated pussa contacted again and again, his mind is not overwhelmed. The pariyadaya is
Chitta pariyadaya means like not obsessing. Don't stay obsessing the mind. That's
right. The tittanti is to
it means to stay in that state, stay longer. Stay in that state. Tittanti means standing.
Standing is.
Yeah, but pariyadaya means overwhelming, completely taking over. So they don't overwhelm the mind, even though they are repeatedly contacting the mind.
So cetaso apariyadana araddhaṁ hoti. The mind is something where that energy can be aroused. Viryāṇa asalinam, he arises energy.
Arouses
energy. He is active. He concentrates the mind. Chittang samahitang chittang ekakam. So this again I think is useful. That this is it's the chitta that becomes obsessed. Right? Chittang napariyaya tittanti. Is that it's either obsessed or not obsessed. And then it's the mind, it's the chitta where your energy is aroused. Like that phrase connects it to that. If you remember the Patimokkha chanting, then in Parajika 3 you have iti citta mano citta sankappo. Like with that. So here it's chitta and mano, like it's joined. So you have chitta with that.
Thought, with that intention.
A mind with that attitude, a mind with that thought, a mind with that idea. Like this is about recommending death or praising death.
Yeah, we would say intentionally.
Intentionally, that's right.
Deliberately. Yeah.
Deliberately, and here the commentary where it explains chitta mano, and it says yang chittang tang mano, yang mano tang chittang. So in this case, this is one of the interchangeable places that they roughly describe the same thing. Like the citta sankappo. Okay. So in Dīgha Nikāya, there's in the section on Cittanupassana, the Buddha describes a list of things that the chitta can have, like qualifies the chitta. And so the chitta can be saragam or vitaragam.
With
like it
passion,
can be that's right.
With passion or without passion.
Sa or vita.
Vita means like, without having removed.
That's right. And what are the other qualities that the mind can have there?
Right.
So it's either raga, dosa, moha. You know that this is the kind of mind that I experience. And then it can be mahakata, amahakata, which is an expanded mind or a unexpanded mind. Right? Your mind is wide or narrow.
Yeah.
samahita, asamahita, is concentrated or unconcentrated. And so samkitta, vikitta. So
it's like thrown in or thrown out.
That's right. Or thrown away. Like, thrown apart.
Okay.
And the commentary explains that the idea, so this is an idiom, this is a Pāli idiom, is that if it's collapsed, like samkitta, then it's collapsed because of tinamidda. It's collapsed because of drowsiness and sloth and torpor. So that, there's nothing propping up the mind. There's no energy holding up the mind. So it's collapsed, like you imagine contracted because there's nothing holding up, nothing propping it up. There's no energy in the mind. And then vikitta. So vikitta, vi is away or apart, and so the mind is thrown in various directions, like a scattered mind. Is uddacha kukucha. Restlessness is scattering the mind. Like this is why it's called like that. And with sa-uttara, anuttara, is that it either is a limited mind.
Uttara means having something that is higher, or having something that doesn't have anything higher. So anuttaranti uttamang pabhassaram. So it says it's the highest. Uttamang pabhassara is bright, nirupakiless and without defilement. That's the anuttara citta.
That's right. So sa-uttara is meaningful in context of anuttara actually.
Exactly.
So the important thing is to know that anuttara refers to the highest kind of mind, that where the kilesas have been eradicated.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's called a limited mind. An unlimited mind, or unexcelled mind, is where the defilements have been removed. And so vimutta, avimutta is liberated or unliberated mind. In the Dika Nikaya, there's the section on right effort, sammavayamo. So he is so again, which term is used when you're making effort? And then he used viriyan arabati chittang pagganhati padahati. So he makes energy, he arouses energy in the citta. So the citta is again describes this, when you're making effort, then that's a kind of citta. Or if you're lazy, that's a kind of citta.
Chitta pagganhati actually is like he grasps the citta and moves it along, drags it along.
That's right. He, like ganhati, right?
Yeah, to grasp.
Ganhati is to grasp, to take.
Pagganhati, like take it and grab it. Okay, let's move. That's how you make effort.
And padahati?
It's just from padhana, padahati to strive.
So he grabs it and he strives with it. Get things moving.
Yeah.
So I think that's also explains citta. I think this is what gives these terms meaning, is that you know what it means to make energy. You know what it means to decide that I'm going to be striving diligently. I'm going to make effort. I'm going to overcome this hindrance. And you know what that feels like, and that is a citta. So that's where that term is meaningful. And you're going to find the right kind of attention, right? Is the attitude? Is this ayoniso or yoniso manasikara? What am I conscious of? What am I perceiving? What kind of Saññā and Viññāṇa there is? Like those will be parts of what you're experiencing. And if you're experiencing things that are distracting for you, filling you with anger or desire, then you're going to abandon those conscious experiences by deconstructing them. And that's how your mind is going to be either concentrated or unconcentrated. And so that's okay. Viññāṇa. So we were reading this the other day in the Kajaniya Sutta. Is connects Saññā and Viññāṇa to their verb forms. So, why is it bhikkhu that it's called Saññā? Saññaṁ kincha bhikkave saññaṁ vadata. It's called perception because it perceives. It's called a conception because it conceives. If you want to use a more knowledge-related, like it's cognizance. That's a very awkward English word that is useful here. Cognizance, like from the root ñā, like because it cognizes. And so to contrast it with so Viññāṇa, why is it called Viññāṇa? Because it's vijānati, Viññāṇa vijānati. It's called so here I choose that translation here instead of consciousness for the V root, like V is away. You discern the difference between two things. That's why how you were able to be conscious of the white flower against the white background, right? You make this distinction and you cognize that perception. And that's and vijānati is to discern. This is that you know it. You're with that distinction. Then another relevant quote for Viññāṇa is with regards to kamma. Is how is Viññāṇa related to kamma? Ajahn Gagisako, can you please read this for us?
This is a very profound one. Itiko ananda kammang khetang viññāṇaṁ bijam tanha sineho avijja nivaranānaṁ sattānaṁ tanha saññā hīnāya dhātuya viññāṇaṁ patitthaṁ evaṁ ayatim punabhavani bhati hoti. Yeah, this is a very but we can't go deeply into it.
Let's translate the first line.
Yeah. So ananda, kamma, action, is the field. Viññāṇa, consciousness, is the seed. Tanha, craving, is the moisture.
Kamma is the
field. Ketta, ke, kampen ke. Action is the seed. This is describing how it works, how karma works over lifetimes. So karma is the field, viññāṇa is the seed, craving is the moisture. And then it's like planting. It's a metaphor of planting some seeds in the ground and then watering them so you get more things growing in the next life. So the next sentence is it says, for the beings sattānaṁ that are hindered by ignorance, obstructed by ignorance, avijja nivaranānaṁ sattānaṁ. So for beings who are obstructed by ignorance and fettered by craving, tanha saññā, hīnāya dhātuya viññāṇaṁ patittitam. The consciousness becomes planted or established. Consciousness becomes established or planted in a low, in a hina dhatu, in a low realm, we would say, or element, in a lower realm.
That's right. And in the sutta, the same formula is repeated with refined, like with refined realms, like, and the relation is to what kind of viññāṇa is that they are, that is planted. What kind of consciousness is the seed?
So because of
And what kind, is it?
but the kamma is also relevant, right? If you make bad kamma, then the field, when you die, then the consciousness will go on and become established in a lower field, which means like a bad field, like where whatever it can grow, even if you water it with the craving, it then keeps watering the seed, but because it's in a bad field already, it's not going to be very nice.
The cycle is that the kamma, in order to make the kamma, you need a certain consciousness,
Yes.
right? So kamma needs a certain viññāṇa.
Yeah.
Right, make it blue maybe. And then the tanha is going to moisture, going to nourish that seed.
So it will grow.
Like the action is planted in the field, thus the seed is planted in the field, and the moisture has to nourish that state.
Yeah.
So the tanha has to refresh it and find new renewal of being.
Right. So
Right,
evam ayatim punabhavan pinibhati hoti. Thus there is in the future ayatim punabhava pinibhati, renewed becoming and re-arising. Punabhava means like again becoming or re-becoming, again becoming. And apinibhati means like literally production, being produced or re-arising, arising.
And here this is
a term.
This is really straightforward term for everybody.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is in the next sutta, where it's the same formula, but instead of viññāṇaṁ patittitam, it's cetana patittitam.
Okay,
so here viññāṇa and cetana are treated as synonyms. Is that it's a consciousness as a seed, but not in the sense of like when we talked about you're conscious of an object. Like it's more the broader meaning of consciousness.
That has always cetana with it.
That's right. That includes this intention cetana.
That's interesting.
Right.
So it's
and so viññāṇa is sometimes this very precise element of experience, but other times it can be expanded into a more broader field of conscious experience that includes that intention and attitude, and is it with craving, is it without craving, is it with passion, is it with hatred, is it with right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then it's a shame we can't dwell on too much on all these, but let's try to get to the end of it. There's not very many left. An obvious connection between viññāṇa is with the nama-rupa. Is that in a Samādhitta Sutta, from consciousness, like these are ablative forms. Viññāṇa samudaya, nama-rupa samudaya. From the arising of consciousness, there is the arising of name and form. Is that in order to, like the two has this very interlinked cyclic nature, that it's the experience of name and form that allows you to be conscious of something. So this is where the concept allows you to have a consciousness of it, but the consciousness allows you to have a concept of it. You can't think of something without the concept of it, but you can't have a concept of it without being conscious of it. It's these two go together, and the way it's described, it's like a whirlpool. It's like
mutually relying on one another.
Consciousness and it's going around in a mutually dependent relation as a whirlpool. And the interesting thing that I think is marvelous about this is where this departs from a psychological or a biological interpretation, is that whatever way you understand nama-rupa, is that you have to put it in, if you're talking about the Buddha's teaching, it has to be in terms that the Eightfold Path makes Nama-rupa cease. So that wisdom, when it interacts with Nama-rupa, with name and form, then Nama-rupa ceases. And so this is very different so this is why it's important to start with the terms that the Buddha gives us, because their purpose is towards this. If you start with terms that are rooted in psychology or biology, you're going to end up with the goals that those terms are trying to establish. And so, yeah, this is these are guard rails that the terms define. It's just like when you before you saw the snake on the black and white picture and after. You had to have this concept in order to perceive the snake. And what kind of concept you're going to have? Like before I showed you the color picture, you had ideas of this is modern art, this is some kind of artwork, this is some funny picture with weird creatures on it, right? These are the concepts that are trying to create an experience for you. But as soon as the right term was given to you, then you have a different experience. And this is why it's important to start with the definitions that the Buddha gives you, because the definitions are what's going to determine what is the attitude and experience that you're going to produce through it. Right? And so one of the most profound concepts in the suttas is this Viññāṇaṁ, where this is in the Kevata Sutta, where you probably remember the story where the monk is going to the different Brahma realms to ask where does earth, water, fire, air ceases, like where do the four elements ceases, and all the Brahmas can't answer him, and he goes to the Buddha, and the Buddha explains to him that your question is wrong. It's not that you should ask where does the four elements cease, but where does it find no footing. And his answer is that it's in Viññāṇaṁ. This a technical way to translate this is that is a non-manifestative consciousness. Right, that it's a consciousness. A more simple way to put it is a consciousness that doesn't show anything. There is a consciousness, so there is an experience, but nothing appears in it. Doesn't show you anything. Dassana is nothing can be seen in it. Nothing manifests in it. Nidassana.
You have to look at how that term is used. There is that sutta where it says, can you take some pencil and draw forms in the sky, in the air? He says no, because space is anidassana. It's
non-manifestative. Right. It doesn't give you features. It doesn't give you signs to grasp, right? And so if you remember, so the monk is, after the elements, after the dhatus, but they are experience, right? And they have no footing in a consciousness that doesn't show these features, right? That's why that's the right way to ask the question. And then, so this is Viññāṇaṁ anantaṁ sabbatopabam. Anantaṁ is
without limit,
infinite, without limit,
has different interpretations.
Without boundaries. Like anta is an end, it has no limits, no ends. And Sabbhato Pabang is bright, and Sabbhato is all around. And the way Katakurunde Jnanananda explains it in Nibbana sermons is that if you imagine that you have a light that shines all around an object, then that object has no shadows. And as wisdom shines experience all around, then it dissolves that experience. That's how it's luminous all around. Like wisdom illuminates, it removes all ignorance and shadows, and that's why it doesn't show anything, because all of it has dissolved and deconstructed. There's no. This describes the mind state of the Arahant in Arahatapala Samadhi. So this is very profound. And then here, in this verse, Akkeya Saññino Satta, Akkeya Saming Patitta. So the significance of this is that Akkeya is things that can be said, like things that can be named. And the beings are only conscious of things that can be named, things that that can be cognized through concepts. And it is these, Akkeyam, these concepts, apariññāya, not understanding them, they are taken to death. They are the yogamayanti.
Yeah, they get into bondage of death.
They are bonded to death. They are bound to death.
Right.
And again, you remember when we did this the exercise with the flower and the snake. If you don't understand how that experience is constructed, then you live in that experience. Then you're bound to death. You're bound to the death of that experience. Like you're bound to have this idea that I am going to be annihilated when that experience ends. Like then there's a wonderful sutta about Matta Sahagatena, where he describes that if he wants, he can perceive, like Saññā, he can perceive the beautiful in the unbeautiful. Or if he goes through the different variations, that he can be conscious of the beautiful in the unbeautiful in the beautiful. Like this is helpful for Saññā, I think.
It's like manipulating your perception.
That's right, is that Saññā is your conscious experience, and if he wishes, it depends on how your mind is directed.
Then you can deliberately perceive things.
And the last is another very profound quote is in the Kalahavivada Sutta, where should have found it earlier, but he is not conscious and he's not unconscious. He is not with normal consciousness, he is not with normal perceptions, and he's not with abnormal perceptions. Like he's describing the mind of the Buddha in Arahatapala Samadhi, where all signs have been let go. He's not grasping, there's no contact made with the mind grasping any signs. Like imagine if you go from the flower and you go backwards. Like if you go back to the flower image, if you go from the flower and you gradually let go of all the signs, and then you end up with a smiley face. But these are the signs grasped or not grasped. So the signs have let go, but this Like evang samitasa vibhoti rupam, saññā nidana hipapancha sankha. Like dependent on saññā nidana, papancha sankha, the signs that proliferate in the mind are dependent on these signs that are grasped. Very profound sutta. So I'm sorry for taking up more of your time than